I've been designated to go to Sunday school classes, which should be following the announcement of the, not so kept secret that in the Methodist Church, how many of you have been Methodist most of your lives? All right, most of us. You know that whether we are happy about it or not, we, at the whim of the bishop and the cabinet, which is the DS's, move ministers. And Bruce and Haley are being moved to Vero Beach. And we are receiving a wonderful new minister to us, a veteran minister, whose last name is short, but he is tall. So that's how you can remember his name.
His name Riley?
His name is, excuse me?
Riley?
No, Philip, his son.
Okay.
Philip Short, and he is coming from Coral Gables. And we know a little bit about him because he was Larbeth, our daughter's minister, and was wonderful. So we're excited. When I heard the name a few weeks ago being part of the secret committee, that never was secret, that I was thrilled that it was Philip. And he's going to be a wonderful minister here in our church. We're excited about that. But Bruce is also taking what I refer to, it's not the term the Methodist discipline refers to, but he is taking a sabbatical, which after last week is wonderful. God knew in advance that he was going to need this. Some of you who maybe didn't know, he experienced heart issues, and they found 2 blockages, 95%. And they opened those with stents, and he's going to be great. But we had to start planning. And so we, some of us have been working on a dinner scheduled for, put it on your calendar now, May 8th, which is a Wednesday evening, and you must make reservations. Did you hear me? We can seat 300 people, and after that, we can't seat them. If someone shows up that evening, says, or the day before, and says, oh, I want to come, you're welcome to come, but you're going to stand in the back. And so make a reservation starting Tuesday. And coming out of church today, you will receive an individual flyer about attending that dinner, and it'll give you all of the information. So we are looking forward to a fantastic send-off. We are blessed to have had Bruce for 12 years. And as typical with me, I will cry when they leave, and I will smile when the new minister comes and try to be as supportive as I can possibly be to this new family. Transitions are hard. We did this a lot in the school system with administrators, and I know how difficult it is. I cried when I left every school, and I tried to smile when I went to the next one, and I knew I would never fit in there, and then I cried again when I left there. And that's kind of the way I feel about this. We are asking that if you want to give a love gift to them in their departure, which there are always uncovered expenses. Bruce will have a parsonage at Vero Beach. And we're pleased about that, and he and Haley are as well, but there are always expenses incurred with that. We're asking that those individuals who want to give a gift may do so, and if each of our classes would give a gift as well, a cash gift probably. So whatever this class decides to do, 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock on May 8th, make your arrangements to be there and to celebrate the years that Bruce and Haley have had with us and the children. Any questions? Yes.
Has a goal been set for the amount that you're trying to?
No. Whatever anybody wants to give, that's what we will give them.
Do we send it to the church?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Thank you. Good question.
Family, is he bringing children or just he and his wife?
The new minister, Philip, has one daughter, I believe, 25 years old in graduate school.
Okay.
They are looking for a house, whether to rent or to buy, and they are in that process now. Anything else I might enlighten us with? Yes.
Is Bruce back home yet?
Yes, he came home Friday, and he's chipper. My great fear is he's not going to give himself time to fully recover. Someone said, God, is he out kayaking on Saturday morning? And I wouldn't have been shocked, but he cannot do that. But he will be in the pulpit. His last Sunday will be Mother's Day, the 12th.
Is he in the pulpit today?
He is here.
That's what
And they did the musical at the 9 o'clock, and he told me Friday that he was going to do a short sermon today.
Yeah.
Anything else? And if I'm wrong, I'm not lying, I just don't have all the correct information. Okay, so let's pitch in and send them off in a big way. What we have kind of decided is we're going to concentrate the next 2 weeks on sending them off, and then we'll concentrate on welcoming the new minister and his wife. Okay? Thank you.
All right. Good to see Wayne back this morning.
Amen.
Amen. Absolutely.
Number 14. One.
All right. First, second, last?
First, second, and last.
All right.
Number 241. And we'll do all 3 gears on this one. Ladies, get on your tiptoes.
They sing an Esther.
I birthdays?
Yeah.
We do, and Buddy Davis' birthday is May the 1st, and he's 91. So if you see him in church today,
Buddy Davis.
Buddy Davis.
And he will be 91.
Yes.
91,
And he
he
said
calls
to make
it.
sure and
Here we
tell
go.
everybody
There you go.
hello.
Here
We're
we go.
supposed to say something.
That's how he trims his fingernails.
and Janice's birthday is the 3rd.
Esther, I'm sorry, I forgot to say, Esther's back too.
Oh, yeah, I was back last week. I'm old now. But it's good to be back.
And Tom. Yes. Oh. I'll throw it out.
Okay, you're busy seeing.
You came prepared.
The lesson's taken this morning from Psalms. One day while having my hair cut, the new stylist told me about her experience with chemotherapy. She spoke of fear, doctor's visits, feelings of anger and despair. When her treatments ended, she began to heal physically and emotionally. And that summer, she planted a garden. She said, I knew nothing about gardening, but it was good therapy. When my tomato plants bloomed, I was so happy. But when the blooms withered, I cried, not realizing that small tomatoes were beginning to grow. When they grew and ripened, we had homemade salsa all summer. Her words made me think of losses in our lives. When we're young, it's easy to focus on hopes and plans. But later, we begin to lose one thing after another. Children grow up, leave home, jobs end, health fails, we lose friends, and eventually we feel as if we have nothing left to lose. In time, however, we begin to see that God often replaces a loss with something new and unexpected. A friend who holds us up, a new interest to replace what we can no longer do, or perhaps compassion for others we would not have had without the loss. Love is not God's final word. Let's pray. Thank you, God, for your love, which will never let us down and gives us hope wherever He takes us. Amen.
Amen.
Does anybody want to teach today?
You don't get 2 Sundays off in a row. You can't be that lucky.
No.
And the reason I said that is because as I got up to teach last Sunday, somebody else got up and to teach as well. And so I said, okay, that's fine with me. I was ready then and I'm ready now. However, I am probably going to repeat the lesson that I had prepared for last Sunday. Although I didn't make up my mind to do that until I pulled in the parking lot and I said, I have wanted to teach that lesson for years and it's never come up. And it came up this Easter for me to teach the 7 last words of Jesus from the cross. And I was so ready to do it then. And pulled in the parking lot and I said, I'm going to do that lesson today. After all, this is still Easter. Easter lasts for 50 days till Pentecost. But it's Easter anyway, even if it was December, because it's Sunday. And every Sunday of our lives is an Easter, because it is the day of resurrection and the day we meet to remember and to worship and to rejoice in the fellowship we have with each other and with Jesus Christ. So this is a lesson that you've probably heard before. I've heard it plenty of times, but I have never had it come up so that I could teach it. And I have a few notes to refer to, but I really think that this is a wonderful lesson for today, for any day. And I've called it, well, the lesson was, in our book, was go, show, and I added something to it, go, show, and tell. We used to play show and tell in classrooms. Every classroom I ever had, we had a show and tell session where people had to not only get up and tell something, to talk, to practice their speaking in public, or practice their English grammar, or whatever they were doing, but to demonstrate how to do something. They had to be able to show as well as tell. And so we did show and tell. The last thing from the cross the last thing that writers of the gospel said, they said Jesus rose from the dead. He, go and tell was the message they gave to him. Go and tell his disciples that he is risen. And then if you are going to be a disciple of Jesus, you can't just go and tell. You've got to go and show. You've got to demonstrate it. It does not matter. If you think of a yo-yo, I was thinking, how would I explain a yo-yo to someone who had come from another hemisphere and did not know what a yo-yo was? How do you do that? I can say, okay, it's about this big, and it comes apart, when it goes back together. It's got some string around it, and you throw it down and it comes back to you. Do you understand the yo-yo? Not until you have held one and made it manipulate the way it was made to manipulate. But if you had one in your hand, you could say, this is 2 pieces of wood, it's got a little peg in between, it's got a string around it, watch what it does. Watch what it does. And you're showing. And people understand very well by what they see, more than by what they hear. And together, if they go together, if what they hear and what they see makes sense, then there is a real message there. And when the disciples were told to go and tell, Jesus is risen from the dead, the angel said, go and tell his disciples. If they're going into the world, in fact, Jesus said, the last thing he said, he is sending them into the world, and he wants them to go and tell. But of course the message is, you can't just tell it. You have to show it. You have to demonstrate it. So if we are to be disciples of Jesus Christ, we got to go and show and tell. And I really like that message for after Easter, because we are still invigorated and inspired by all of the worship and ceremony that we have around the Easter season. This is the heart and soul of Christianity. Christ is now risen from the dead and become the first fruits of them that slept. And because he is raised, we have every hope that we will be as well, that our life is eternal in him. And so he is our hope and our salvation. The last things that Jesus said from the cross are instructions. They kind of tell us, if you're supposed to go and make disciples, if you're supposed to go and share and show what Christianity is, then you need to remember the last 7 things he told us are important. I understand that when someone is in the last stages of life, when they're about to die, you listen to what they say, because they mean every word of it. It's the most important thing that comes to their mind about life. It's what they say just before they depart this life. So these are the 7 things that Jesus said as he was leaving his earthly life and leaving his disciples these instructions. And of course, the go, show, and tell is the theme here. I'm going to try to talk through these. They're things that you've heard so many times before, but I don't believe that I could have walked in the door without preparing and gotten up and told you what these 7 words were. But they are the most beautiful message and the most beautiful instructions for someone who is sending us out to make disciples. These are the things that I'm telling you are important as you go and show and tell. The first thing that he said from the cross after he was nailed, and this is a person who is so fully human that he feels every agony that is possible for the human being to feel, both physical, psychological, and emotional agony. He is in that stage when he speaks these words. And he says first, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. That is first directive that we have as disciples of Jesus Christ, is to, first of all, accept forgiveness and forgive us as we forgive those who trespass against us. We are supposed to be forgiving and forgive at the same time. That is characteristic of Christianity that you cannot avoid. Carrying a grudge, carrying hate around in your heart is so unlike the Christ. So, and it shows when you have a grudge, a hatred that is something that is a slow burn in your life. It will show. Even if you don't see it, other people will. I think it is probably a good thing to dwell on, is this, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And he was saying this to forgive these Roman soldiers who were causing the most unbelievable agony to this person, and he is saying, forgive them. Nothing that anybody can ever do to you or to me is going to be that painful. So we can follow his instructions, knowing that we are required to do less than he did, but as he did. Father, forgive them. Whatever the offense is, it must be forgiven. And forgiveness makes you, well, if you were weighing it in pounds, it would be, a ton. Forgiveness takes a ton of weight off of your heart, out of your mind, and out of your life. And it frees you up to smile, to grieve, to say nice things, to be cordial. That's what forgiveness does. It doesn't just let the other person off the hook. It lets you off. And I'm thinking of that so many times when I have had perceived hurt in my life. I hurt because someone else did something that made me feel bad, and I held the grudge. As long as I held the grudge, I still hurt. When I could take the deep breath and say, that's okay. That's okay. I am going to forgive this. Then the weight was lifted from me. So Father, forgive them is beautiful. Go, show, and tell advice from the cross. Second word from the cross was today. This is to the thief on the cross that said, remember me, Lord, when you come into your kingdom. One of them on the other side. If you're the Christ, why don't you get yourself down from here? If you're the Christ, why don't you get me down from here? The other one said, you don't deserve to be here. Remember me when you come into your kingdom. Is that, yeah.
That's not what
That is a word of salvation. That tells us that Jesus has a kingdom, and that if we are confessing to Him, that salvation is available to us. We are next to Him, and we do not believe in that He has a kingdom, then He won't, He won't grant us the entrance. But if we are next to Him in all situations, and we say, remember me when you come into your kingdom, then He has promised that we have a place in that kingdom. So this is not just a word, this is a word of redemption, a word of eternal life. It is a beautiful word of the cross to remember. The third thing that he said is, he was speaking to his mother, and she was with John, the only one of his disciples that showed up at the crucifixion. But his mother was there, and John was with her. And he looked down and he said, "Woman, behold your son." He said, I know that this is a dreadful moment for you. I am giving your care into the hands of my disciple, John, of my friend, and someone who will take care of you in my place. Woman, behold your son. And then he said to John, son, behold your mother. And this is an important part of our instruction from Jesus. Relationships are so very important in this human condition that we live in. Relationships, blood relationships are very important. Mother, father, sister, brother. They are important if you can maintain them, and sometimes it is not easy, but it is so important for your peace of mind and for your Christian witness to maintain relationships with the people in your life. Relationships are very important. Blood relationships and friendships and all relationships are very important. We are not intended to be dwelling alone. Man was, when God looked down on Adam and said, it's not good for anybody to be alone. In the human condition, you need companionship, you need relationships, you need to be able to give and take the love that God has put in your heart. And that means you would go to great lengths to restore or repair or make good, very quickly. Don't let the sun go down on your wrath. Try to keep your relationships in very good order. The fourth thing, and this one is the heart wrencher. Jesus cries out, my God, why have you forsaken me? That always disturbed me because I thought, of course, God did not forsake Jesus, but yes, He did. The fact that Jesus became sin for us, and the sin of the human condition was put to death. God could not look upon that sin, and so He had to turn for a moment away, and that was the punishment. That is what hell is when you are out of the presence of God altogether. You have He has turned His back on you, and that is the most excruciating pain, far more than the nails, far more than the spear in the side. This is the worst psychological, emotional pain that you can bear. And Jesus cried out as a human being, my God, why have you forsaken me? Of course, it lasted for a moment, and He was restored. But for that moment, He experienced what every sinner who does not confess and does not repent will endure. good message from the cross and a good inspiration for you to consider. 5. I thirst. Remember that he said that? I thirst. Probably very few things make you more uncomfortable than being thirsty. But I think that this is part of his vocabulary here to completely identify himself as a human being. He is not exempt from the pain, the agony, the torture. He is not even exempt from being thirsty and wanting to have some condolences, some administration, some address to his pain. And I thirst, really explains his humanity. Being thirsty, I think, is not, it serves two purposes. It's very uncomfortable, and so it inspires you to do something about it. When you're thirsty, you want to get some relief from your thirst. And, water, of course, you feel like that if you could just get a drink of water. Some people are thirsty for other things, but water, of course, is the major quencher of thirst. In this case, those who were administering to him at the foot of the cross raised a sponge filled with vinegar, and I think vinegar had some property, some alcohol in it that probably was a little bit anesthetic, and they were raising that to him to relieve his pain, and he refused to have that pain relieved. He just admitted that he was thirsty. But thirst makes us seek, and I think saying I thirst reminds us that whatever we thirst for, we really seek to fill that discomfort. And being thirsty for the love of God, being thirsty for forgiveness, being thirsty for helping humanity, being thirsty for a lot of things is the inspiration for moving and doing something, addressing it, doing something about it, relieving your own thirst by serving someone else's. Blessing from the cross. Okay, that was number 6. It is accomplished. It is finished. It's over. This is not a cry of, I give up. I can't do this anymore. It's over. I've done everything I could do. It was actually a cry of victory. I think it is done. I have accomplished the mission that God sent me here for, and I have done it as the best to my ability. Of course, he did it perfectly. But saying that was a great release for his humanity to say, I came here, I did this, and I have finished, I have done, I have accomplished it. And that is, of course, we know that had Jesus not come, we would be still lost in our sins. If he had not died for our sins, we would have no hope of eternal life. But since he did come and sacrifice himself in the most excruciating human way for you and me, should engender a great appreciation and a great love for him, that we do not have to go through eternal damnation, because he has paid for the sins that we commit. Okay. Number 7, Father, into thy hands I commend my spirit. And this is a cry of victory too. This is a great cry of victory. I have done it. You have accepted my sacrifice, and I am at peace. I am commending my spirit to you. I think probably that's a good prayer to carry around with you all the time. When you're distressed, when you're feeling a little down and out, or when you're feeling abused or disquieted in some way, I think that's a good prayer to repeat. Remember that Jesus said at his time of great distress, and it was his release. Into thy hands I commend into your hands I commend my spirit. I can't do anything more about it, but I give it over to you, Lord. And whatever you do, I am relieved. And that's wonderful advice. I wish I would think of that when I was, in the middle of something, tearing my hair out, or sitting in traffic, or the peace of your presence, Lord, into your hands I commend my spirit. And I think saying that does release God's presence to you, and you can appreciate and rejoice that he is always there. He doesn't, the joke is, God stays up all night. I can ask him anytime, anywhere. He never sleeps. He is always present. And if you are distressed, if you are in joy, if you are euphorious, and you say into your hands, you're sharing your joy, and you're praying, thanksgiving for your joy. If you are in distress and hurting, and you commend your spirit to God, he is present for your comfort. So these are beautiful things that we have, I think, good reason to be reminded of them over and over again, not just at Easter. But I said when I started out, I hadn't thought about this in a while. Last week was Easter, and I was going to do an Easter lesson. But then I thought, that is no problem. Easter is every Sunday of our lives is Easter. And it has reminded me, going through this, that every Sunday I need to get up and say, thank you, Lord, for the sacrifice of the cross. Thank you for forgiveness of my sins. Thank you for being present with me. Thank you for my relationships. Thank you for always being there. That is who can do without it? I think probably this lesson today was, you go and show and tell. And you can't show without telling. You really need to show and tell. And you can do that, of course, by abiding in these words of Jesus. Do as he said to do as he did. Go and show and tell that he has lived and died and become our eternal hope for glory. Amen. I think I probably have a lot of notes I'm not going to read. I say when I'm finished, I have to sit down.
Sissy, I am so glad you shared that wonderful story. That was really just an evolution. I understand that the Hendrick School needs some volunteers during lunch hour over there, so if anybody is interested in helping children open bottles and containers and so forth during the lunch period, let me know. It's about an hour. It's 10:45 to 12:15 or 12:15 to 1:45. So if you have spare time during the lunch hour, just let me know. If you missed our Thursday night get-together, at Suzanne's house. You really missed a very, very beautiful night. The weather was absolutely perfect, and of course Suzanne was the perfect hostess. Thank you.
Always love that. My pleasure.
Good job.
Are there any concerns of the class? George brought a wonderful recipe, if anybody would like a great recipe for shrimp that he brought Thursday night.
I want one.
And I hovered around the shrimp platter.
I made a pig out of
Oh my goodness, it was, and he confesses to the fact that it's very simple, so.
Yeah.
But it's very, very good.
Shrimp. I've never had that shrimp. That was excellent.
Tom, our treasurer, is not here today, but we probably need to decide on, as a class, what we're going to contribute to Pastor Bruce. Does anybody have a feeling as to amount? We usually carry about $400 in our treasury, and the only expense that I'm aware of is coming up is our camp, our Madison Ranch this summer, where we provide dinner, but that usually isn't very much. But we'll also probably be asked for a gift to our new minister too, so we'll have to keep that in our thoughts. Bill, any idea on an amount?
Well, I think we've also got some other expenses coming up. I think maybe Guatemala. Since individually, we're also going to give a
Right.
gift. I would make a suggestion of maybe $100 for the class.
Okay.
That's second, Dan.
So, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, $100.
Okay,
I'll tell Tom,
okay, and he can just mail it to the church.
yes.
Okay. Bill, you want to leave us laughing today? Oh, Tom, I'm sorry, what am I?
Bill is Bill.
No, it is Bill, it is
Bill
Bill.
didn't hear. Bill was not hearing.
Yeah, yes.
He wasn't
He woke me up.
He was still thinking of the $100.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you.
Put the mic up.
Put that back
Sure. Everybody's sure now.
I don't think it's all.
How about that?
Yeah, great.
Well, there's a few things that, you to think about as you go through life. Food for thought. Would it not be ironic if Popeye's chicken was fried in olive oil? We're all old enough to know that. Yeah. A few things that we do. A sign says, I put my grandma on speed dial. I'll call that Instagram. The Energizer Bunny was arrested, charged with battery. No matter how much you push the envelope, it's still stationary. The word pasteurize means too far to see. Think about that. Pasteurize means too far to see.
Yeah, I got it.
Way back, pasture.
Think about that one.
Last but not least, this book on marriage says to treat your wife like you treated her on your first date. So after dinner tonight, I'm dropping her off at her parents' house. If we'll all rise, we'll be dismissed.